All right, what's up, yo? Welcome into the LA Sports Brotherhood. It's me, Ryan, here with my brother Matthew. We took a couple days to get our heads right after the crushing defeat against Michigan. But truthfully, I think the reason we kind of waited a little bit instead of doing an immediate standard recap is because I don't think this is the end of the world for SC. In fact, I think we saw some signs that really are encouraging going forward. So, Matt, in that idea, obviously, of course, reference the game as much as you want, but if we're thinking about going forward, what that game meant to you, what would you say?
Yeah, I'm glad we got to take, a couple days from it. I'm not as upset as when I first watched. And I think the biggest thing is that I truly think that this was the toughest game for USC. And I know there's going to be the jokes about how they couldn't throw the ball, they only threw the ball for 32 yards, but our weakness, everybody knows, the whole country knows after that game, is that offensive line. That is the one weakness of this team.
Yeah.
And that was by far the best defensive line we're going to face. I mean, literally two first round NFL tackles. It's the best we're going to face. And it was literally in the biggest stadium in college football, in the big house, in the first road game of the year. So that was definitely the toughest. And, thinking that we had it right there, we had that win right in our hands and we let it slip. It's frustrating, but hey, the season's not over at all. We can still get to the playoffs. Really, we're still Big Ten contenders. So, looking forward, there's a lot of positive things. Got to take care of business against Wisconsin, this next week. And again, I think there's a lot of good knowing that this was the toughest game, but it is interesting that the two remaining ranked opponents are this prototype. It's physical, run the ball, great defense. Of course, I'm talking about Penn State. I'm talking about Notre Dame. But of those three teams, I would say that this was the toughest matchup for us. What do you think between those two teams, Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think complete talent wise, it would be Penn State, but I do agree that this was the most difficult challenge just for the circumstances. It's the first time Miller Moss has played on the road. Obviously, he's played a true road game, is what I'll say, because he's played two neutral site games and a home game. And Penn State, I think, will have a more complete offense, even though it's not going to be incredible, but they'll be able to throw the ball for more than 15 yards. And Notre Dame, I'm still kind of not feeling them. But either way, yeah, I do agree. And to that point, to Millimos specifically, despite the offensive struggles, I was actually super encouraged by what I saw from him because he didn't look phased by the crowd. Like the whole circumstance, all of it. He wasn't really missing throws. He had I don't know what the official count was, but I if you told me he got knocked down 30 times cuz he had 50 pass attempts. If he got knocked down 30 times, I would believe you. Like if that's what you told me. I would even be surprised it wasn't more. But yeah, so positives there, negative that I'll save that to the end. Offensive line, obvious. We talked about that the entire preseason, and then the transfer portals off season. They didn't address anything. We was dependent on development. Elijah Page is very young, but he looked horrible. Mason Murphy was a disgrace. Tobias Raymond looked good, actually solid. So maybe that's like a mixed bag or whatever. But Alani Noah doesn't know how to block someone in a zone scheme, which is what they run so much. Even though when they do go man on man and like pulling guards and stuff, they actually do get pushed. But the zone, I don't know. We talk about that a lot. Regardless, I think the negatives outweigh the positives in terms of the function of the game. But going forward, I think the good thing is all the negatives we talked about, at least I brought up, are on offense, which is something that we don't really expect. The defense showed an incredible amount of heart. Sure, tackling up until the last drive when it was the most backbreaking run, but I'm still super impressed by what I saw from the defense.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too specific into the X's and O's and what actually happened in this game. I'm gonna be, doing a video that should be out later this week sometime. We're actually going to why we lost this game and what happened. But talking about what's next for this USC team, we've now had two ranked opponents, two huge games, and around the world, these are probably honestly two of the best games of the season,
Yeah.
not just USC, just overall entertainment wise. So two big games. What can we take from this? Well, my number one thing is Miller Moss is my QB1. He's a great player. He's not a game manager. he's really proved himself. He makes great throws. And while we did miss, Caleb's playmaking ability with, the O line he has to deal with, if we can block for him, he's gonna make great throws. He's great. The receivers, I was really pleased with Zach Branch. I know he had that drop in the final drive, but he looked like a receiver this game.
Yeah.
We know how explosive an athlete he is. Jacoby Lane, honestly, he looks a little bit banged up, but still made plays. Deuce Robinson has looked good. He just needs to get more targets, man. Like he's looked good. You mentioned this to me during the game. Like safeties cannot guard him 1-on-1. We need to see more Deuce Robinson. But overall, yeah, the skill talent great. Woody is one of my favorite Trojans. Miller Moss is great. I have two big concerns with this team. One of them is obviously the O line. We've already gone deep enough. My second one is Lincoln Riley's ability to manage games. I feel like we've had this conversation too many times for as good of a coach he is, but that was and I'll talk about this more tomorrow. But that was inexcusable the way he managed the game, and I just feel like we keep coming back to this. And I don't want him to be one of those coaches where like Mario Cristobal, where it's just like you can't rely on him to win a big game. So that's something. Honestly, I got my eye out for him. Is that something you're worried about?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. When I said I would save that for later, that's exactly what I was talking about. I've been on this more than you have because since his first year, I've talked about how much I don't like some of the stuff he does. Timeout management has always been bad, and his play calling in down the stretch. There's a meme online, and not a big meme, but like third quarter Lincoln Riley, even from his Big 12 days, everyone's like, okay, that's when he's gonna mess up, and in the fourth quarter, you kind of bring it back because the play calling, he has a. I think he the way it seems from an outsider like me is that he has a vision for how the game is supposed to go. He goes in because he's a genuine, like he has a great scheme. He draws up great plays. So it works in the first half. Second half adjustments come, and he insists that it happens that way still. And so when it's like, you can just run the ball. Like you can just take 3 yards. If you're going to punt anyway, you can just take the yards and it'd be cool. But it's like, no, I'm Lincoln Riley. I'm going to have this explosive play and we're not going to worry about that. And it just happens. I remember the first time it tipped me off was his first year against Oregon State. Travis Dye averaged like 12 yards a carry. And down the stretch, Caleb Williams was dropping back every single play, even when they had the lead. I was like, "What are we? What's going on?" They had 8 men dropping. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's that type of stuff. And you obviously were talking specifically. Actually, fill me in if he answered questions about this because I don't know if you know. Throwing the ball in any capacity 2 plays in a row when you're against a team that has not attempted a pass the entire half and they need to drive the length of the field in under 3 minutes. If you just run the ball twice, it would actually no, it would be like 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I think it would have been. That's not that exact, but around 3 minutes. Instead, you run 2 horrific shovel pass screens that were blown up immediately for no reason. It was like 3rd and 21. Even if you do the first screen, horrible decision, but you throw it once, incomplete. To drop back to pass again when it was just gonna be a play to try to get 5 yards because there was no way you're gonna break it. That truly the worst decision I've seen him make in the entirety of his USC tenure. Like I'm genuinely worried about his ability to do some things.
Yeah, I think overall there's a lot of takeaways from this game. A lot of good, a lot of bad. I think the schedule, the remainder of the year, isn't as bad as it could be. We have two ranked matchups, two similar styles to Michigan, and both of them at home. Other than that, there's no really, the other games are kind of, like sleeper games where, we're going to Minnesota, to Maryland, to Washington. Those are all going to be tough on the road, but, talent wise, we should win all of those games. So to me, I'm thinking you got to split with Penn State and Notre Dame. You absolutely can do this. I feel good about, pretty much majority of this team. I got two big concerns. It's the O line. It's Lincoln Riley and his ability to win the big games. But yeah, I'm feeling good about this team still.
Yeah, I do feel bad that my last little point was so negative, even though I mean every word of it, because I genuinely think this was the strongest showing possible in a loss. It hurts more. Like I talked to you a little bit. I won't expand on this because we're in the end right now. But we talked about expectations before the season, and after the loss, you and I were talking. I was like, it's still fun. Like the reason I'm not beat up about this is because going into the season, every USC fan had this as a loss. Even and in that we still had expectations for a good season. Now we know we could have won. It hurts more in the moment, but then you realize that the greater expectations of us going 10-2 or 11-1 even are much more realistic. So I think personally, best case scenario if you couldn't win.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this was a guaranteed loss going into the year. Could have had it, but 11-1 looks possible right now. 10-2 will be a great season. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Matthew said, he'll be back with the defensive breakdown, or I should say, just game breakdown in general. We're gonna have a lot more stuff. Obviously, preview three keys. Matt might be taking over the reign too. So yeah, fight on. See you soon.